We're up to Daf Chaf Aleph Amid Aleph. So the Mishnah in the introduction told us that 4 Nedarim that aren't really Nedarim, including the Nedarim that we're talking about first. We're focusing on Nedarim that you did purely to motivate yourself. Neither is Ruzin. So we said, for example, when you're haggling and you're negotiating, and each one says, makes a ledid, I'm not going to less than a certain amount. And actually, the example in the Mishnah is important. The Mishnah is particular, not as we will discuss, where the Meicher said he's not prepared to go less than a seller, which is 4 dinar, and the buyer said, I'm not going to be prepared to go more than a shekel, which is 2 dinar, and each one made a net that they're going to aser, themselves the money or the object, and then they agreed to 3. And we're saying that all along that's what they meant, and therefore the Rav explained that all along that's what actually they meant, and that's how people negotiate, people talk. So now they want to know how particular is the Mishnah. Says the Gemara in the middle of the page, Chav Aleph Amar Aleph. What happens is Omar laid out right in the middle of the page. The first word of the line is Omar. Omar lay Ravina Ravashi. Ravina asked Ravashi a question. What happens if Omar lay, if he said to him Tvei Mesala, if he said to him more than a seller, and what do you call it? And V'hala Omar Botzim a shekel. If he said to him, I'm not going to settle for less than more than a seller, which can either be the two pshat in the round, whatever. It could be either another dinner, which is 5, or another word, and he said, shekel, and he said even less than a shekel. He said 1 dinner. I'm not going to pay a penny more than 1 dinner. Is neither havi or is druzen havi? Is that already considered a neder, or is still just to motivate? In other words, 2 ways of learning pshat. One way of learning pshat, some of the Shayim say that Ran says in one pshat is that it means he dropped it by 1 pruta. I'm not going to pay a penny more than 2 dinar minus a pruta. And the other one said, I'm not going to accept less than 4 dinar in masala plus a pruta. The fact that they were so definitive about a pruta means that they're very particular in their wording. They didn't round it off. So maybe that's exactly what they meant, and we cannot interpret it. Other Hashem have a problem with that pshat. So then why do you have to say he went up or he went down? Say even more. Let's say the Moicha said, I'm prepared not to take less than 4 dinar minus a pruta. The question is not the disparity between the two, or the chasm between the gulf between the two. The question really is because he's so particular. So then maybe he dafka wants that. Even if they're closer. One guy said, I'm not going to accept less than 3 and a pruta. Another one said, I'm not going to pay you more than 3 minus a pruta. Even though they're so close, but because they were so pedantic, maybe they're particular. So they don't like the pshat. And the other pshat is that the gap, the gulf between the two. Maybe the widest disparity that you can have is between 2 dinar versus double. The moment it becomes more than double, if one of them they said more than 4, or not both, or maybe it's no longer just an interpretation. It won't work. Says the Gemara. We learned how you decided the chaveda. Somebody was pestering his friend. Masad was more than just asking. He was like nudging him and pestering him. Eat by me, and sort of the other guy said, "Leave me alone." He went way beyond what his friend only asked him to invite him for a meal, and he said, "I aser by myself your house. I'm not even going to walk into it. Or even a drop of water that I am going to taste." In other words, he went to the extreme. The din is he's allowed to. What he meant was that eating and drinking. He meant eating. He didn't mean I'm not going to walk into your house, even though he said it. He was just trying to emphasize his point. That's how people talk, but don't take him literally. And the same, even though now the gulf between, he asked him to eat, and he came out across. So I'm not going to walk into your house. I'm not going to take a sip of water. Is a raya that nevertheless, even if the gulf is so wide, that's how people talk. So now the mother has a question about so why are you telling me that you're not allowed to drink? What tip is saying to come out? He said, I won't even have a drop of water from you. That's how people talk. Even if the gulf is wider, people talk that way. Now, big machlekes are showing him here. So what exactly is the outcome? Are we saying that it's not a neder at all? He can come in actually, which is the Rosh and others, he can come in and sit down and eat as well? Or the pshat is, he can walk into the house, because he didn't mean that part, and he can take a drip of water, but he's not allowed to eat a meal, because that's what the intent was. So the machlekes is showing how we take that. Says the Gemara, yeah. Sorry?
to? We don't.
That's the machlekes. It's not chal at all. There's no neder here at all. Or then there is a neder, but not. Don't take the words literally. That's how people talk. Yeah. Amalei, he said back to him, "Midami, this is not an issue at all." When he said tipas soinin, do you think that it was an extreme? Midami, gabe soinin, by soinin, tzadikim oim lemaat v'oisim harba. Tzadikim, they say a little and do a lot. Look at Avraham Avinu. He said to the malachim, "Yukarnam ma'ad ma'im," and he says, "V'ekchas pas lechem," and then he killed 3 cows to give him 3 tongues with all the condiments and everything else. So tzaddikim, so even we're talking about tzaddikim over here. So he said when he said, "I don't want to have a tippet tzaynin," he knew that a tippet tzaynin means a meal. So therefore, it's not. The gulf is not so wide. It doesn't ring it eye one way or another. But here we still have a suffix. Dilma pachas mesela the yesa shekel karma v'zruznabit. Maybe he's just saying it to motivate himself to make sure it doesn't go down too low in price and the other guy doesn't go too high in price. Or maybe that because the gulf is so wide, the dafka remember they meant when you didn't have it. It's a valid neder. Tiboy, the same lashon again. It's a good question, which is strange because you don't have that in other mesechtas when we leave with a teku. You say tiboy, and where we're told a teku. One of the pshat and teku is that tishbei taritz. So the question is that obviously not only Chassidish yeshivas that don't learn Nedarim, but Eliyahu Navi also won't learn Nedarim. We're not going to ask him. Oh, Rabbi Huda said Nedarim Asi. This is Rav Asi. So Rav Asi is not Rabbi Asi, and Rebbe is usually one that's not just Rav. Rav is an Amodim bubble, so it's a different Rav Asi. Why am I saying that? Because we'll see later in Gemara. Otherwise, he contradicts himself. So Rabbi Yehuda said, these 4 nedarim, you still have to get, even though it sounds from the Mishnah that these are not nedarim, you still have to go to a bezdin, three hadyatis to get it annulled. These 4 nedarim that we just spoke about were nidr gogas, nidr oinsin, nidr havoi, and nidr zizis. They're not real nedarim. You're just motivating yourself, or you said stam verter, which are, it's impossible, megazim. Says the Gemara, Shmuel, Amar Tana, and our Mishnah says, Tana said, Arbod and the Dorim Hitiru Chachamim, which means that they're not a neder, but Amret Sich Shayla Chacham, you're saying you have to go ask a Chacham. It seems to me you don't need Shayla at all. In fact, such an obvious question, what did Ravasi hold? Ravasi learned, like we learned before, that this Mishnah is telling you technically you don't need Shayla. So Tamil Chachamim, no issue. Amiratzim, he learns even in the Nedarim in our Mishnah, they need a Hatorah. We don't want to get them in the habit of making Nedarim. And comes along, Shmuel says, no, even Amiratzim, when it comes to these 4 Nedarim, there's no neder here to annul. Then he says further, a chacham cannot be mataneder ela ke'ein arba nedarim halalu. You have to be mataneder only like these kind of nedarim over here. What do you mean in that case? There's a concept. There's 2 ways of being mataneder. One is called charota, and one is called pesach. Pesach means we find an opening. We say if you would have anticipated that this would happen, you still have made your neder. That's called a Pesach. Now, in the rules of Pesach, we know you cannot use a Pesach on Noilad. A Noilad means something new, brand new happened that it wouldn't have, even if it would have happened then, it wouldn't have turned out the same way. But now that's how things are. That it doesn't help us by neder because at the time you made a neder, this wasn't been himself. But a Pesach is if you were to realize that these would be the consequences. Everything has repercussions. If you were to realize these would be repercussions, would you still have made your neder? And if he says no. And we'll see in the Gemara tomorrow, how far we go with these, had you anticipated repercussions. But charata means, there's 2 kinds of charata generally means you have charata. But like the Ritva writes, people don't know what charata means, he says. Generally 2 kinds of charata. One charata is now. I have now charata what I did yesterday. Another charata is that I have charata that yesterday I would have had charata. I was angry, so I couldn't control myself. So I was in a fit of anger, and you do sometimes stupid things. And Mishas Maisi, it's stupid, but you just can't help yourself. So I have charata from Yikare. So there's 2 kinds of charata, and we'll see the Gemara here that the machlek is which charata works for the matan neder. A charata that now you have charata, or charata that you have charata from Yikare. That means that the neder chatchil is not really a neder because if I would have calmed down, I would never have made this neder.
we never is that he
It's
never
not a
intended
Pesach.
that in the first place.
No. Shacharata means you intended to make a neder. But if I wouldn't have been so angry, I could have been pacified. Or whoever made me angry, whatever would have just smiled to me, I would never have done what I did. I never intended that, meaning depends what the circumstances are.
Consequences are. He intended to do what he did or what he said. But if I say something which implies, or then someone comes to me and says, "Oh, that's another. You can't do that." I said, "That's not what I intended. I meant something else." Is that not another in the first place, or it's
that's not another? Because that's called in a neder you need people liba shalom.
Okay, so
not just the word, but you have to think. But we have another concept called Dvarim Shabbat and Dvarim. So it has to sort of be explained in a way that Taka realized then that what you're saying the truth and this is what you meant, even though the words sound differently. So then the question is there neder at all? Or there's no neder, or there's no neder at all? There's no neder at all because your words are not exactly, or there's a neder, but the way you thought the words were meant. Like we had before, Pirushon, is okay. Says he might have further. So he says you have to be like these four Nedarim. So when do we say you're not allowed to be matter? Just say no. Yes, you can't just say, "Oh, there's no neder here," unless it's like these four Nedarim with Taka. There's no neder here. It's motivational. It's obvious. So you talk gizmois, which is impossible, as we'll see in the Mishnah later, or you were forced into it, or you had no idea. So therefore, there's no neder at all. However, so he holds a poiskin becharot. It's not good enough. A guy walks in and says, "Look, I changed my mind." That's not good enough. And unless the person comes along and if a guy, you don't just say to him, "So you have charata." The Ran says it can't be pshat. Not a pshat here at all. The Ran says that the difference is we don't know what charata is. The Ran says, "Why are you coming to a bez in the first place? We don't have charata." The only reason why you're here is because you have charata. But the Ran said, "Well, the pshat here is we're saying, Taisha says, did you have charata yesterday when you made the neder now, or you're saying that you made the neder, you did the right thing at the time, but now you're ready to change your mind because you think they punished them enough." That kind of charata is not good enough to be matzah neder. It's that's what I mean. Ain't put charata means that we don't come up with the. He has to say that he had charata l'chatchila because he was angry. Not his fault. There's a person, let's get Rabuna, Amalei, Liba Chalav. Rabuna said to him, Liba Chalav, are you still in the same frame of mind that you originally made your neder? Amalei, lo, no. Lo, no. What do you mean, lo, no? That the frame of mind I'm in right now, I should have been yesterday, and then I would never have made the net in the first place. Then we're shy. That's how Moses showed you. Rashi doesn't go in that way, but that's how Moses showed you that. That she's saying me I never would have made that. Who does the camera Rabbi Huna came before Rabbi the son of Huna? So that that was Huna. He said to him, you need stronger than that. He says, Ilu hoya asara b'nei adam. He says, if there were 10 people there, there would be 10 people there who at that time would have appeased you. Mina darta, would you have made a neder? So you need more than just saying you have been misgiving. Saying that if the people would have worked on you, would you have not made it in the first place? Tani said that actually this is machlekes Rav Huna, and the son is a machlekes Tutamay. I'm a lot of left. You still have the same, you still maintain the same frame of mind. Imam Alav, no, Matin I say, or Matin. Mishum Rabbi Yisi and Mishum Avi. He's the name of his father. He says you need more than just charata. You need something in between Pesach and charata. Where do you go? Because right now you don't have 10 people standing here, just 1 or 30 people. If there have been 10 people at the time watching you and they say, "Hey, what are you doing? Why are you making such a neder? You know what you're realizing what you're doing." Mean that you make the neder. Imam Alav, Matin I say we are matter. Simon Asi Elaza Yechiv Yana. These are 4 different situations we talk about. Who else can make the Rebbe Asi? So this must be Rebbe Asi. Let me give Rebbe Asi. Malay. He said to him, Kadoi Tias, that you still have Do you have charata now for what you did? Amalei loy, no. I don't have. I don't maintain my neder. I do have charata. V'shayu is mat. Now before the Vasi said that you're not matter with charata, and here he's matter just with charata. So obviously it's not the same Rabasi. This is Rebbe Yassi, and that's versus Rabasi. Ahudas like that's 100 Shaymo. Ahudas like I'm at Abelazar, Malay. He said to him, "Boy, is neder. Did you really want to make that neder originally when you made it?" Malay, if I wouldn't have been, provoked. I wouldn't have been provoked to get angry like being a kum. I would never made this neder. Like to hate boys. In that case, it should be the way you want. Since you never wanted to take in the first place, it's mutter. Again, so in other words, the charata we're doing here is a charata mi'ikara. Ayisha is a woman that is a woman that made a neder against her daughter. She doesn't want her daughter to have anything to do with her, and so on. Also, the kamed Rabbi Yechon, she realized she did the wrong thing. She came to Rabbi Yechon b'matan neder. Amalek, he said to him, "Ilu hava yadat." Had you known, the amri megeirosach, as a result of the neder that you made, your neighbors said, "Allah the battle." Rumors started to abound about your daughter, and the rumors were that if the mother would not have seen by the what mother would cut her daughter out of the will, or what mother would cut her daughter off from her? Obviously, she must have become a harlot or something. She must have done something really terrible. No mother, for no reason, Stam the Velterine is going to cut her daughter off. So if you would have realized that that the kind of rumors that are milling around your daughter, would you have made an enemy? A doctor would you made an enemy? I'm going to lay low, no. And he was mat to the net. Mat to the net. So this is like a Pesach. This is not a charata. This is called a Pesach. You found a consequence that you didn't anticipate. And therefore we say, had you realized it, but you've done it? He said, no, okay, we're mat to the net. As if the net never took place in the first place. Barte de Rabbi Yanai Saba, the grandson of Rabbi Yanai Saba, also came Rabbi Yanai Saba, came before Rabbi Yanai Saba, and he made a neder. Amalei. So and he wanted to mat a neder. So Amalei, his grandfather said to him, "Ilu hava yadat." Had you known the paschim pinkosov that in Shemayim they're going to open up your dossier, and they're going to start analyzing all of your activities. Mina dart, would you have made your neder? In other words, if you were to realize that if somebody makes a door and they say, you're so frum that you already can add more layers of Isurim. Let's check this guy out. Would you have done this? Amalei loy, no. V'shaya, and they permitted. That was the Pesach that he used. Famous story of Zusha Anapola, that he was somebody in this town, like we in this town, that every time before he went on a business trip, he would go to Zusha and get a bracha. And he went, and he was always maslich. One year he was going, before he went to the business trip, he went to Zusha's house, and his wife says, sorry, Zusha, he went to the Magid, Zusha Magid, to his Rebbe. So this Gvir thinks to himself, I'm getting second class over here. Imagine, look how rich I am from Avzusha. If I go to his Rebbe and Zusha Magid, I'll become even richer. So he went to Zusha Magid, not for bracha. He went for bracha, got a bracha, and that year was a disaster. He lost everything. So he went to the Avzusha, and he says, Avzusha, I hate to tell you this, but you're greater than your rabbi. Because he bracha, look at this, I lost all my money this year, and you, Baruch Hashem, every time you give a bracha, it works. So Avzusha said, no, you don't understand. Kozman, you weren't so particular which Rebbe you would go to. The Abishah wasn't particular. You deserve it, you don't deserve it, I'll give it. The moment you started being particular, you definitely wanted to talk to the biggest tzaddik in the world. And they said, okay, let's see who this guy is. You deserve anything, and it turned out to be, you don't. So that was the Pesach that they used. Omar Abba, my Carter, where does it say that if you make the Dorim, they open up your dossier and everything? It says in the Pasuk, the Acha and the Dorim Levaker, and after the Neder, they investigate. I've got the Pasuk Rabbi Yana lay, Anana Pesach lay. Even the Rabbi Yana use this as an opening, we won't do that. Why not? Because we have a concept that if you can intimidate the person too much, and of course he'll say, oh, he's too scared, he's too embarrassed or too scared to say, yeah, I still would have made the net. So therefore, we can't trust that he actually means it. And that's why you have to just talk about normal circumstances that some people might say, I don't care. And some people will say, oh, yeah, I would never have made it. That's called the Pesach. But who's going to have the chutzpah to say, I don't care if they open my books? Who's that arrogant? So therefore, it's meaningless. Also interesting from here, you see here that a relation can be mataned. You don't have to go to a proper bezdin or proper people that are, this is his grandfather. And he was mated his neder. So anyone further... not on the same grounds, like same grounds, we will not use as an opening a Pesach the following. My Pesach what did Gamliel say to this older person? He wanted Mataned, and he brought down a Pesach where it says, "Yesh boited are those who utter words kimat kodesh chedev, and they stab like a sword, but v'loshu chachamim marpev, or the words of chachamim heal." What does that mean? So he touched him. This is what he told the guy, the Saba. Do you realize that kol aboite, whoever utters a shavua or a neder from his mouth, deserves to be stabbed, deserves to be killed, just for making a neder? The only true is go to Rachamim. They can be mataned as if he never made ned in the first place, so therefore you won't be deserved to be stabbed. We don't again. We're not going to say that because you're going to quote him this pasuk, and he'll say, "I don't care. I made the neder." He'll be embarrassed to say that. So of course he's going to agree that yes, of course that I didn't. I would never made the neder. It's not genuine. Nor for the same by the same token, we cannot use as a pasuk the following. The Tanya Rav Nosson said, "Hanoider, if somebody makes a neder, is keilu boine bama, as if he built a little altar in his backyard." I'll explain to you what that means. And if you make a neder and you actually fulfill it, is keilu makriv olav carbon, as if he brought a carbon. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Okay, so what's going on is as follows. Rashi learns, and a few other Rishonim, that whoever makes a neder as if he builds a bama for avodah zarah. But you didn't yet bring any kabbalas to it. And if you fulfill the neder, in other words, you didn't go be matzah neder, you fulfilled it, it's as if you brought a carbon to avodah zarah. In other words, it's a mitzvah, even if you made a neder, it's a mitzvah to be matzah neder. Why wouldn't you go ahead and use it? We'll soon see in a minute which part they were against. But why wouldn't you go ahead and use it as a pesach? Because which guy would have the chutzpah? I don't care if I do avodah zarah. Nobody. So he's not genuine. The Ran and Moshe Shem learned we're not talking about avodah zarah, just a bummer. You're building yourself a bummer in your backyard, and that's you're not allowed to build bummers in your backyard. And if you bring a carbon, if you go ahead and you fulfill it, as you brought a carbon. And the Ran said a beautiful thing. The Ran said the Eibush gave us mitzvahs. The Eibush gave us mitzvahs, and like a basic midrash from his bech. And then you go ahead and you say, no, I want more mitzvahs. What's another? I'm adding another mitzvah to another mitzvah here. 613 is not enough. I'm going to add another 614th mitzvah. So as the Shami says, loy dayach, it's not enough for all the mitzvahs of the Asad that you have. The Lashon of Shami is loy dayach b'mesha osta Torah el sha'ata oiselecha dvarim achedim. It's not enough that the whole Torah is as if you're building a bomb, another mitzvah. And so
isn't that
just like
the reason why? Isn't that the reason why a Nazir has to bring a korban chatos? Because he asked things that the Eibishter was matter to him, wine and so on.
Yeah, but that's not something because the mitzvahs are very. That's more because the Eibishter gave you these things to enjoy, and you're abstaining from it. You're like living in Gan Eden. Now, how does this work with the Ran? The Ramban writes in Pasha Kedoshim, what's the mitzvah Kedoshim to you? The first Ramban, beautiful Ramban. He says the mitzvah Kedoshim to you is you have 630 mitzvahs, but you have a number of things that you're permitted to do. And Kaddish Atzmach b'mutulach. The mitzvah of Kedoshim to you is to take those things like you're allowed to eat, but don't eat and be a glutton. Eat in moderation. In other words, the Ramban says that there's a mitzvah of Kedoshim to you, which is to add more layers. It comes on the Ran and says no. The chiluk is, I think, that the Ran is saying is you're making a mitzvah because when you make a neder now it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. You have no choice. The Ramban is saying now it's a mitzvah, but I'll be mahadir. B'shas Ma'is is not a mitzvah, but you want to be frumer, you want to be mahadir. That's a good thing. But if you're doing it in the name of mitzvahs, that we say loy dayach is not enough. What are you adding more for? So the Gemara says now there's a machlekes of Bible. Says the Gemara as follows: Bereisha paschilim. The opening part that making a neder is a bummer, that will tell people because that's not so scary. Even Rashi says, even if it's just avodah zarah, I'm not sure why people are not embarrassed to say, I don't care about building a bummer avodah zarah. Rashi is hard to understand. Somehow or another, people are not embarrassed to say, and therefore, if he says, yes, you're right, I would never have made a neder, he's being genuine. But the sefer, which is that, but if you continue, it's as if you brought a carbon, is Abayah paschinen. Abayah says, even that you can say it's not that intimidating because people see, especially if you're going to the Shainim, it's a bomb and a carbon, you'll say, well, it's still a good thing. Because I'm adding another layer, still a good thing. So therefore, they're genuine when they say I would never done it. And Rabbi says, no, people are not being genuine. However, Rav Kahana learned the Gemara the way we just said. However, Rav Yuma learns that Machlekes the Bible differently. He says, he says in the Sefer, definitely everyone agrees you don't say that. If you brought a carbon, definitely everyone says you don't say it's intimidating, and they're gonna consent, not because they really mean it. But Bereish is a machlekes. Abaye paschinen, and Rabbi says loy paschinen. Abaye says all you're saying is as if you built a bomber. People are not scared to say yes, I would have done it, and therefore if he says I would not have done it, he's being honest. And Rabbi says no, even that people are embarrassed. The hilchas loy paschinen, loy bereisha, loy beseif, and halach is we don't open up not in the reisha and not in the sefer. Okay, we'll stop over here and we'll continue tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem. Okay, everyone have a good day.
I find it interesting what you said before about the difference between making a Pesach or
Charata.
that in the Lashon of Kol Nidrei, there is a girsa, there is a nusach that says v'chuloin is charatna b'hoin me'ikara. But we don't say that. Our nusach is v'chuloin is charatna b'hoin, but we don't say the word me'ikara. It's just
true. We're actually going to have a little bit about what we do in Kol Nidrei, and we're going to see machlekes Rishonim, different words in Kol Nidrei. Okay, one other thing we want to speak. There's a big machlekes Rishonim. You have 2 minutes. Big machlekes Rishonim. If we're saying here now by a neder, there's a mitzvah to be matan neder. What about a shvua? Is there a mitzvah to make a shvua? Because shvua, you're using Hashem's name, you're invoking Hashem's name. That's the paradigm of a shvua. Even if you don't, is there a mitzvah to be mata yeshvua or not? The big machlekes is a shaynim because all we're talking about is Nedarim. Those shaynim who say that a shvua is also a mitzvah to be mata yeshvua. That's the Rambam. Where does the Rambam say that? Because the Rambam says that a shvua, if you ask, let's say, I'm not going to eat bread, and this bread get mixed in with other things, the Rambam calls it a dover sheyesh le matirin. We have a rule that something is bottled 60 times, but if it's a dovish is matirin, but we learned in Marbe, an egg after Yom Tov become permitted and it got mixed up in 1,000 eggs, we're not going to rely on the laws of bittul because wait till tomorrow it's mutter. The machlek is by chametz if chametz is a dovish is matirin or not. So here also the Rambam says every shvu is a dovish is matirin because there's a mitzvah to be matter yeshua. And therefore, just like a neder, there's a mitzvah mati neder, there's a mitzvah mati yeshua. So it's a double shesh from a tin, it's not bottled. The Machan Ephraim asks, where does the Rambam get this from? Because the other Rishonim hold clearly that shvu is different than neder. Because the shvu is stricter, we don't want you to be mati yeshua. We want you to go ahead and comply with that shvu. Because it says that yanaka we had before, and so on. You made a shvu, keep it. And one of the reasons also make sure you don't do it again, because you'll see how difficult it is. You'll keep it and you'll observe it, and you won't do it again. So there's a machlekes by shvua if there's a mitzvah to be matter, just like by neder, or not. Anyway, stop here. We'll continue tomorrow.